Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got a special guest here. His name is Brandon Cobb. He comes from our world, but he really focuses on development and what that means. I'm totally green to it. So I got to ask a lot of sort of basic questions as to what is it like and what is this whole process like in terms of developing land. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode here with Brandon. All right, I've got my guest here, Brandon Cobb. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Jesse. How are you doing?
Good. So we're going to be talking about land development. Really, like, you come from a development background. I'm very new to that space, so I'm really interested to get an understanding. But before that, how did you even end up in this space doing this?
Yeah, so, I'm what they call an accidental entrepreneur. I never had any desire to go out and do my own thing. I was doing medical device sales before all this, and I loved what I did. I didn't have any desire to go out and do my own thing. Enjoyed rubbing shoulders with surgeons, training hospital staff, being in surgery every single day. I felt like my product was making a difference. I was very intrinsically motivated. And a lot like when it was at one Friday afternoon, about 4 or 5 o'clock in June, my boss says, "Hey, I want to meet with you." And I was having a fantastic day as a sales rep. Excited to give him the good news. I go and meet with him at the Starbucks over on West End. You could see smell the coffee, you see the sun shining through. It was like one of those awesome days. And before I could tell him how excited I was to the good news, the great day that I'd had that day, how much money I'd made him, he fires me. And I was shocked because I was not expecting that to happen that day. And it took 3 or so hours to wear off. And that's when I realized something very important. It doesn't matter how hard you work for a company, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it. At the end of the day, nobody's going to look out for your financial well-being but you. And so that was a tough lesson that I learned that day. I mean, I had the Rookie of the Year sales awards, all that. And for whatever reason, my boss decided, "Hey, look, you're not a fit." So I accidentally found myself looking for, another opportunity. I didn't know what that opportunity was going to be at the time. And, when you lose your job, especially your dream job, a lot of people may think, "Oh, it's just a job, get another one." Well, when it's like your dream job, it's more than just your job. It's a sense of identity. And so because I'd gotten fired from it, I wasn't really sure what the next step looked like. So I went out and I tried to many different entrepreneur things. I thought, "Hey, look, I'll be the next Tony Robbins. I'll write a motivational blog." That failed. I said, "Well, you know what? I got into medical device sales. I had a lot of people reach out to me asking how to get in. Maybe I'll create a course on how to break in." That failed. I was like, I really enjoy this whole life coaching thing. Maybe I'll be a life coach. And Jesse, you're going to laugh at this, but not a lot of people want to take life advice from a 26-year-old, believe it or not. So that failed. But then I discovered this little tool called real estate, and I literally sold all my retirement accounts to start my business. I used that cash to buy a house that I ended up flipping. I ended up making like $30,000 on that flip, dumped all that money back in the marketing. And I joked that if you've ever seen the movie Batman where the Joker slides down the big pile of money and then turns around and lights it on fire, that's what I was doing with marketing dollars. And that led to me doing 4 or 5 more deals. And I took the money from those deals and I kept dumping it back in the business, compounding. Well, fast forward several years. Now I'm building houses. I'm doing transactions. And man, let me tell you, it was a lot of work managing all the new builds, everything. And, I lost money on a lot of deals. And I, literally went years sometimes working, not getting paid. But I pushed through it and I did over 187 transactions. I was doing like 30 new builds a year and, finally was able to push through and actually have some success. When we started doing land, it was by accident. Originally, we were buying land to build more houses, but then we started to get knocks on the door from these national home builders that wanted to buy the land that we had. And at first we're like, no, it's not for sale. You can't have it. And they said, well, what if we offered you this for it? We said, no, it's not for sale. Sorry, get out of here. And they come back in about, well, what if we offered you this for it? And we looked at the offer and we're like, it's for sale. And do you want the one across the street too? We'll develop that one for you. And so that's how we got into the land business. And the whole reason I tell this story is so that, people listening don't spend, decades climbing the ladder, barking up the wrong tree to just get let go and realize, holy crap, I haven't taken anything into my own hands. And I'm, in the same shoes that Brandon was in, jobless and not really sure what to do. That's the reason why I share this with you, because just start now in whatever it is you want to create, because a company's not going to do it for you.
So you were doing sort of, new builds on single family homes, and then you get into land development. What does that mean to you exactly? Are these multiple homes, neighborhoods? What does that mean typically for you?
Yeah. So when we were building houses, we were doing onesie, twosie spec houses in the downtown core. So you might have a really dilapidated home, but it's zoned for 2 houses. You can tear it down and build 2. We were doing a lot of that. And the problem is it takes just as much time and effort to talk to one person that owns a piece of land you can do 2 houses on as it does to talk to one person you can only have 40 houses on. And it's a lot easier to build 40 houses on one piece of land rather than building 40 houses on 20 different pieces of land spread out all over the place. So we're like, man, it would be so nice to just build the same house, switch up the architecture a little bit, some of the finishes, and show up to the same every day. That's what our motivation was to make the switch. And so we started going after those parcels of land thinking we were going to build, and ended up just developing. And when I say develop, I don't mean actually go vertical. When I say develop, I mean doing the horizontal construction, so roads, sewer, water, utilities, not actually building the homes where you're going vertical. So we're doing the development and selling the ready-to-build lots to a builder.
Got you. Okay, so you're not actually building the homes, but you're getting the lots ready for a builder to come in and build homes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one exit strategy, is that. The other, it's probably 30% of our exit strategy. The first is we can just take a piece of land through, get it approved, and sell the paper. So that's something that we do. And then for the lots that we really like, we might develop those and sell those. But, I'd say the majority of our business is getting the land approved for the new community and then selling the paper on it. And then we'll develop maybe 33% of our inventory where we're actually developing the lots.
So, spec houses versus land development, it's quite different. As you're mentioning, you're really getting them approved, prepping the lots. Is it technically, would you say it's easier than the amount of work versus actually building a structure?
Yeah, it's a whole lot easier. In our opinion, you're not dealing with 27 different subs. You're dealing with maybe 5. So you've got your grading contractor, you've got your utility contractor, your road and curb contractor, usually the same guys. And you might have a couple here and there that are, doing some other stuff. So it's not a whole lot of crews to manage. Some of the differences is we don't do anything spec. So we pre-contract with a AAA rated, Wall Street funded national builder. These are your Lennar, your Hortons of the world. So before we ever go and stick a shovel in the ground or go get financing, we have it pre-sold. That's huge because it eliminates that back-end risk of just putting it on the market and hoping that it sells. And a lot of times these builders are bringing a 10 to 20% deposit to the table and giving it to us, free money to do the development. In other words, if I'm selling $5 million worth of lots to a builder, they're probably going to give me $500,000 to $1 million to do the development. So it's free money that I don't pay any interest on to actually help out with the costs. That's a big bonus for us. It reduces the amount of capital we have to go get to get financing for the projects. That's one of the perks of doing it. It's a lot of times it's pre-sold. You know, your budgets aren't as line item heavy. There's not as many items on there, and you're dealing with a lot less contractors.
So let's kind of walk through that process of taking a piece of land and turning it into something ready for a community. So you're doing the pre-sales. What sort of are the major steps here to kind of get it to the point where you're offloading it to a builder at that time?
Yeah. So the first step is putting it under contract. The biggest mistake that we see people make is they buy the land before they get the approval for the community, thinking they're going to get it, and then the city throws them for a whirlwind. It doesn't get approved, and then they lose a lot of money. That's the biggest mistake I see. The second biggest mistake is they over-engineer things. They don't do their due diligence on the land before spending a lot of money on the civil drawings. I'll give you an example. I had somebody bring me an approved preliminary plat. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But it was approved. They just need to get it designed to get the final civil drawing stamped. And when I say civil drawings, imagine architectural drawings for a home. A builder doesn't know how to build the home without the architectural drawings, right? They don't know how to bid it out, the cost, they have no idea. Civil drawings are the same thing for a piece of land. How deep do the utilities go? What's the slope of the road? How much earth are you moving? So when I say civil drawings, that's what I'm talking about. So he gives me this 50-home townhome, says, hey, look, the preliminary plat is approved. You just need to design the civil drawings and get the city to stamp those, and you're good to go. And I looked at it, and I saw something funny. I looked at the size of the townhomes, and I go, these are 11-foot wide townhomes. Who's going to build an 11-foot wide product? And he made the mistake that every developer makes when they're first getting in the industry, which is, I want to make as much money as possible on this piece of land. I just want to shove as much density on there as possible. I don't care what it looks like. You don't design it with the end product in mind. And as a result, no builder wanted to buy that because they didn't want to build 11-foot wide townhomes. If he had done his research, they'd know that a lot of national home builders want a 20 to 22-foot wide, 45 by 55-foot long townhome product on there. So this is some of the big mistakes that we do. And during our due diligence period while we're under contract, those are the types of things we're doing. We first create a concept plan. This is a very basic piece of paper that shows what the potential community would look like on it. No engineering, none of that. We take that to the city and we fill them out. Hey, is this something that you guys would feel would add value to the community? And we're getting feedback. Oh, maybe they want a dog park, a playground, some more green space. Who knows what it is? Maybe it's an easement to something else. Once we can get a verbal from the city, that's like due diligence step 2. And so we'll do some preliminary things to get a preliminary plat approved. Now, the preliminary plat needs some light engineering done on it, right? You're going to have to show the city some stuff. But once you get that preliminary plat stamped and approved by the city, that means they have approved your development and said, hey, we want this contingent on you designing it. Show us the civil drawings to make sure it's safe, and we'll approve it, and then you can move forward and do it. So that's the preliminary plat. So preliminary plat's a big hurdle, and you got to go through multiple stages to kind of do that. Maybe the city wants a traffic study done, right? Maybe they want to see how the neighbor is going to get affected by the stormwater. So you might have to do some light engineering to get that preliminary plat approved. But once you have it, now you're ready to design the civil drawings. And this is where you're going to spend a little bit of money, and it takes a long time because now that civil engineer, they're designing the slope of the road, how the water is going to wash around the community, how deep you're going to have to dig the utilities. Do the utilities flow the right way? If you're using gravity sewer, is the sewer system gravitating? Is the waste flowing down a hill into the main line? And so the whole engineered set happens. Once that's done, it's going to go to the city. They're going to review it with their engineering department, make sure it's safe. and you're going to get a stamp from all the different departments of the city to make sure that your community is safe. This is the one thing I didn't understand that was actually kind of cool. We've got this amazing system in the United States that we take for granted. In other countries, they don't have this, but there's a reason why you have the fire department, the public works department, the zoning department, the stormwater department. These are the departments that are in charge of making sure the city is safe. And so your development has to meet the standards of each of those departments and get their stamp and approval to say that it's safe. And once you get that, you, my friend, now are ready to go and pull your grading permit and start moving dirt. There's one more step, which is submitting to the state for your SWPPP approval, your stormwater prevention plan. So the city does want to double check to make sure there's no flooding of the houses or anything crazy. But after you get your SWPPP, then you can go and pull your grading. But the biggest thing is getting your CDs approved by the city.
What does the timeline look like? All of this from the start to end. Typically, how long are you looking at for these projects? Yeah,
it depends on the area and the municipality. So for us, 15 months or less is how long it takes from the time that we initially engage till we get that approval, because it takes time to be able to do these things, right? It's not quick, especially designing the community. That takes a long time to do. If you're in California, God bless you. And all of the red tape that you got to put up with, it might be 3 years before you get an approval, maybe even 5 years sometimes because of how they do things. So it does differ depending on the area that you're focused on. But, most of the stuff that I hear and see, a year and a half or less to get these kind of approvals, unless you're in a major metropolis that is not very business friendly.
Sure. And so how are you, personally in your business, how are you guys, finding properties or land? Are investors bringing them to you and wholesaling to you? Are you doing that yourself? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of different avenues and they all work, right? We have found deals from agents that bring us stuff. So we're very heavy on social media. We're very heavy in, the communities, meeting people, understanding who's who in the zoo, who do we need to meet. So agents have brought us deals. When you work with the community, when you actually have a development going on, people find you, right? They got land, they want to sell it. They're like, oh, who's going to pay me money for it? The person developing across the street. So people find us that way when we're set up in the community. We go and we handpick specific parcels. So you guys that do like land flipping, the smaller parcels, like you'll probably have a really big marketing program and a filtered list, and you're using, Land Vision and Land Portal, and you're creating filtered lists, and you got a marketing program. We know the specific areas that we want to be in, so it's like a sniper approach. So we're handpicking a lot of these parcels, and we're doing a very warm reach out to that owner. And a lot of times we're offering them more than what their property is currently worth because we can force appreciate it while it's under contract. And that's kind of rule number one that I talked about earlier is we don't ever buy anything until we get all those approvals in place. So we put it under contract contingent on the outcome we want, and we explain that to the seller. And once we get that outcome, we close in 60 days.
And that pre-sale happens how long after that?
So in the due diligence period, we're lining up our builder. And if we don't line up our buyer during the due diligence period, if we don't have the interest, so again, concept plan.
Contingent on that as well then?
Go to the city, get the verbal from the city. They feel good about it. Okay, all right. Let's line our builder up. Okay, we got our exit price lined up. We know what the contract is. We know what the city kind of wants. That's our green light to start moving forward.
And so how do you with the work, you work with large national home builders. How do you establish those relationships, especially early on? If somebody wanted to try something like you're doing, Brandon, how are they going to establish those relationships? Because now I'm sure you've got a couple builders that you probably go back to. I'm not sure, but that they know what you're about and you've got a reputation. But how did you get into that position?
Yeah, so when we were just doing this, just getting started into it, we went and met with all the sales reps for the national home builders. We decided that's who we want to work with, right? Like they don't go get financing, they got cash, right? And what I love about working with national home builders is they have to buy. They have to build. These are publicly traded companies. If they don't grow, stock price goes down. Not good for Wall Street, not good for shareholders. They have to build. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it makes them a great customer to have. You want to be in the business solving rich people problems. Well, there's no richer customer than Wall Street, right? So we want to be on the side of the table that Wall Street is cutting checks to us on. So I went, and that's one of the things that we teach in our land development accelerator community is you go and you build your buyers list and just reverse engineer that. So we know exactly the areas the builders want to be in, what their product sizes are. We design the land for that product type, and they want to talk to you. They want you to bring them land. So it's a very easy conversation. The sales rep is on your team. He's getting paid a commission. He just works for a big Wall Street firm, right? Y'all are on the same team. He's going to give you the highest, best offer because he doesn't care. He just wants the commission.
All right, so we acquire property through marketing, as Brandon is also talking about in this show as well. I am one of the co-founders here at Pebble, and one of the things that we focus heavily on is marketing and tracking your marketing. This is hugely important. No CRM out there is really built to track on your marketing channels. And when I talk about marketing channels, I'm talking specifically on the acquisition side. How are we going to get those properties? Because nothing starts until we start our marketing. Whether you're cold calling, you're mass mailing, texting, whatever it is, you need to start your marketing in order to get this business up and running. And this is one of the things that we completely streamlined inside of Pebble. Not only that, make tracking so easy. Tracking for your return on investment, tracking for your return on ad spends. These things matter to us so we can continue to invest the right dollars to get the properties that we need. So if you want to head over to pebblerei.com, book a demo with us today. I'd love to show you around as to how we're tracking marketing. Once those marketings are set up inside of Pebble and those leads are coming in, we can then start attributing those leads to the specific channel that we have done our marketing on. That will help us understand which channels are working. Anyways, head over to pebblerei.com today to start tracking your outbound marketing to acquire more properties. Anyways, enjoy this rest of this episode here. Right. And so who does the pricing for that? Is it whatever they're offering, or do you sort of name a price?
I like to get prices from them. He who gives the first offer loses, right? Simple negotiation tactic. So we make them give us an offer a lot of the times. So I mean, you're going to have to make sure there's enough meat on the bones for you guys as well. I'm sure you sort of have an estimate of what you can sort of offload or exit that lot or that area with, especially with the, you're putting the property under contract. So are you already, in your head, you have an estimated price in your head of what you're going to get out of it? Yeah, we've got an idea. Otherwise we wouldn't pursue it, right? So we know what the market is, but again, when you're in price discovery and the market changes, you don't know until you get that offer from that builder, right? So I'll give you an example. We had a property we put under contract, 89 lots, $30,000 per pad is what we were putting it under contract for. So we knew, hey, look, we're under contract for 30. We got an offer for 38 per pad. Those are the numbers that we like to see. So that tells us, hey, we're going to move forward with this deal.
Well, help me understand everything sounds awesome. What are some of the bigger challenges you guys have to face here? Is it finding the lots itself? Is it, it sounds like working with national home builders is the easy part. What typically is the hardest part?
Yeah, every business has doo-doo on it. It's funny, like everything sounds great and shiny, until you get into it. The doo-doo in our business is number one, dealing with the city. And number two, this wait time on the civil engineers. I can't wait for AI to start designing civil drawings. So I don't have to wait 6 to 8 months for the civil drawing, because you could just compress the whole timeline, down significantly based on that civil engineering firm and the city not knowing their butt from their face sometimes. Because you got to think, these are elected officials on the planning council. They're not developers. They don't understand everything that goes into what we're doing. And some of these elected officials don't even understand the bylaws that they're supposed to uphold. They'll try to tell you, oh, we don't want this community. No, I'm not approving this. And then their attorney has to be like, the property's already zoned for this. Like you you have to. Like, you can't not approve the community. And they're like, oh, like that's what you deal with a lot of times. It's people that don't understand development. And so it makes your life hard sometimes because you're spending all this time to get like a traffic study that they could have requested at the very beginning, but they didn't know. They just decided later on, oh yeah, we need a traffic study now in order to make this decision. It is a pain dealing with incompetent people that don't know the development side of things, but that's just part of it. Like you're never going to get around that because the elected officials, they are, they're going to get voted in, voted out, and you're going to be dealing with new people sometimes. So that's a big pain dealing with the city and the city approval process.
I get you. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. Now, a lot of our listeners are sort of investors, real estate investors or land flippers, and help us understand, what are some of the key differences between an investor and somebody who's sort of a developer, or what kind of overlaps are there?
When you say investor, what do you mean? Like somebody who's wanting to just passively invest versus somebody who wants to like actively do the development?
No, I guess somebody who's flipping the piece of property. And now sometimes they do force appreciation on that property too. But are there sort of any alignments between the two, or other than, the basics of it being different, completely different roles? But yeah, from your experience, what are some of those differences you see?
So the differences between like flipping smaller parcels of land versus doing the entitlement and development. Yeah, so these strategies go really, really well. Like a lot of people who are flipping land, they probably come across these larger parcels and are like, yo, they just did a development next door. Like, how do I do this? I know I could probably subdivide a couple lots off here and, make a couple $100,000, but like I saw the properties next door sell for $4 million and I'm trying to sell this one for $500,000. How do I do that? It's the same size. And they're like, they just don't understand that process and what to do it. So knowledge is one of the things, right? Like we're adding a significant amount of value to the property by getting it approved for these new communities. So difference number one is the amount of value you add. You're not just subdividing a couple lots off, though you can do that. You're significantly increasing the density. Right. These are 50, 100, 200 unit projects that are very valuable by the time you get those approvals in place. So that's number one. Number two is the time period, right? You might take 4 or 5 months to flip a piece of land. This is going to take probably 15 months or less to get that approval in place. I like it's like this is really designed to go hand in hand with land flipping because you're probably already coming across these parcels, and for you to just drop the land flipping thing and do development, which I'm not saying that don't do that, because you lose your cash flow. Like this is a very cash flow intensive business. If you don't have cash coming in, every month, and you're waiting 15 months for a deal to close to make, $1 million on, well, how are you going to get there if you don't have the money to get there? You know what I mean? So that's another big difference is like the cash flow in this business. Until you have consistent deal flow like we have, you need a way to manage your cash flow. That's probably one of the most important things. And then we're dealing with pre-sold developments. I'm not sticking on the market and hoping to get a certain price out of it. I have it pre-sold already. So those are some of the key differences between those two types of business models.
Yeah. Okay. In today's market, are there certain locations or cities that are an attractive target for development?
Yeah. Well, it's anywhere, and it depends on who your buyer is. Like what I'm talking about, this approval process, we sell to national home builders, but it works for any niche in real estate. If you want to do apartments, do the same thing. Go figure out who your apartment buyers are, what they're paying, what they're designing, and go after those parcels. If you want to do retail strip centers, commercial, do the exact same thing. It's the same approval process, no matter what real estate niche you're in. We just happen to do national home buyers. So if I'm going to decide what to be in, I pick areas that national home builders are already building. It's that simple. And I can just go to Lennar's website or Ryan Home's website or Horton's, and they have a map of all their communities and where they're at, and that tells me where to focus.
Okay. All right. I want you to walk us through, maybe one of your more recent deals and some of the learnings you got out of that. Kind of give us a picture of and kind of take us along that journey here.
Yeah, so one of our recent deals that we're in the process of selling is a 74 home community. So we bought it we bought it for, I want to say $700,000. So 74 homes, $700,000. So about $9,000, $10,000 per pad, right? I like to break everything down per unit because it's a little bit easier math. Cost us about $53,000 to develop. So I'm all in it for about $63,000, and we're under contract selling it for $90,000 per pad. So we're making about $25,000 per pad doing the development on it, and there's 74 of the lot. So you can kind of get an idea of what those numbers look like. So that particular deal, and I'll tell you, like, we had a lot of challenges with it. We bought the land in September of 2022. Worst possible time. The market froze for the next year. But because we bought it with 100% investor funds, we didn't have any bank notes on it. We didn't have any note that could get called due. We just hung out for a year. Market bounced back. All our builders, right, they flocked to the sidelines. So although that builder interest we had initially, it left. Everybody freaked out because of interest rates. But because we could hold on to it, we waited a year and a half. Market bounced back. We developed it, and then we ended up selling it. Now, I'll tell you the little surprise that we had in it is the first builder that we had didn't perform, and this is why we kind of broke our own rule, but we only work with national home builders. This was under contract with a local builder, right? Not a national home builder, and they didn't perform. And after they pushed the closing, we said, look, guys, we got to terminate. Y'all are making a bunch of excuses. We got to move on. Well, they went and filed a notice of contract on the title, clouded the title on it. So we couldn't sell it to anybody else. And we're like, why the hell would you do that? What they were trying to do was they were trying to pre-sell these lots to homeowners. So they were getting a deposit from the homeowner, and once they had enough deposits, the bank was going to give them the money they needed to close it. So I guess they didn't pre-sell enough of the lots to get their financing, which is why they couldn't close. So in order to buy more time, they clouded our title, said, hey, we're not going to let you sell it to anybody else, and we're not going to close till we're ready. So essentially held it hostage. I had to contract Realtrax and get all of their listings removed. And once they found out that they weren't going to be able to pre-sell any more lots and get the financing, they said, oh, shoot. Okay, they figured out our strategy. I guess we'll just drop it. So we ended up having to sue them. I ended up having to sue them. We never actually went to court. They walked away before because they knew that it probably wasn't going to go their way. But it cost me $6 figures in holding costs and attorney fees for that problem. So, and I had to give them all their earnest money in order to walk away. I didn't get to keep any of their earnest money either. So that was that's stuff like that's going to happen.
So learning lesson, national home builders.
The local guys, and if you're doing smaller projects, that's probably good. But, we're doing 50, this was 74 homes. Yeah, I'll never deal with them again. I just want to work with the big boys.
Brandon, thanks for coming on this show and giving us an understanding of what your world looks like when it comes to land development. Now, again, a lot of land investors are listening to this show here. How can they be of service with you? How can they sort of engage with you? And what's the best way to reach you at?
Yeah, there's two people that we serve. One are the people who are actually actively in the business, right? And they're wanting to learn how to do the entitlements. We've got our Land Development Accelerator community. And the other are actual investors that just want passive income, right? They like the idea of investing in the affordable housing, because a lot of neighborhoods we do are entry-level housing, right? I say little a affordable, not big A. It's not Section 8, not government housing. It's that like first-time homebuyer housing product. But for the people who are wanting to invest, maybe you want to build a legacy, maybe you just want to create some passive income, and you like the idea of investing in land, you can go to hbgcapital.net. It's pronounced Harry Bob Gary Capital.net. On that website, I've got a free ebook, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. You can grab that ebook. I wrote it because I had an investor reach out and say, hey, can you help my friend out? He lost all his money on an investment and he's not sure what to do. Well, it became very evident early on in that conversation, the reason that he lost all his money is because he did not know what questions to ask. He was very green. He didn't know how to vet the sponsor. He didn't know how to vet the operator. And I'm a big believer that questions unlock the answers we need to make more informed investment decisions. Had he been armed with the right questions, he could have got the answers he needed and not lost all his money. So I put together that ebook, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask. Go to hbgcapital.net and grab it. If you're wanting, maybe you're in the land business and you're wanting to do some larger deals. Maybe you're looking at your funnel right now going, dude, I've got a piece of land that I think would be great to get zoned for a community. I can make a lot more money on it. You can go to learnlanddevelopment.com. It's learnlanddevelopment.com. We have a free course, Land Development 101. Take the free course. It's 6 hours worth of content to help you get started. If you get a lot of value from that and you think that, maybe a community of other land developers might be the next step for you, you could book a call and see if it's a fit.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, Brandon, thanks again for coming on the show and sharing with us your world, which is very closely associated with what we do here when it comes to land flipping. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Take care. Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening and catch you on our next episode.